Hello again, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to Axios House here at Climate Week and the UN General Assembly. I am Ben Geman. I am one of the energy reporters with Axios, and I am the co-author of the newly relaunched Axios Future of Energy newsletter with my colleague Amy Harder. So if you head over to axios.com/newsletters, you can get it right in your inbox. It's free. And if you're following along on social media this afternoon, please use the hashtag Axios House. Okay, let's get to it. Without further ado, let's welcome to the stage the person you're all here to hear from. We'll discuss what's next for decarbonization, investment, politics, and more. I want to please welcome to the stage someone who is a long-time and very important voice in the climate and investment worlds, Galvanize co-executive chair, Tom Steyer. Tom, thanks for being here.
Ben, it's terrific to be here.
Thank you. All right, let's get into it. You recently offered on social media some tough love for people who are trying to fight climate change. You wrote, quote, "We used science, metrics, and parts per million, but none of it answered the question most people have. What does this mean for me and my family?" Who is the audience for that message, Tom, and do you get the sense that it's sinking in?
Well, the audience for that message is everybody who's involved in this energy transition. Because regardless of what's true intellectually, this has to be translated into real impact for people sitting around their kitchen table. So does that mean affordability of electricity and transportation? Of course it does. Does it mean clean air where their kids don't get asthma? Of course it does. Does it mean the ability for the United States to compete internationally based on the cost of power? Of course it does. So really what we're saying here is, let's take this out of anything that's intellectual and theoretical and start talking about the important things that change people's lives day to day that they understand, and therefore we have the ability to do that. Let's not only do that, let's explain that in a way so people can get behind us.
Don't make it intellectual. You're speaking my love language here. So next year is an election year. Let's say you are tasked with writing a short, say 20-second ad laying out the most persuasive Democratic argument on climate. Give us that 20 seconds.
If we want the United States to lead globally, if you want to have affordable energy, if you want your children to be healthy, there's one solution, and that is for us to go with the new energy solutions. We can win, we can create jobs, we can be the United States again if we choose that. Or we can choose a 20th century solution that is going to leave us much poorer, much dirtier, and much less successful.
Thank you. I want to play devil's advocate for a second on this topic. Here's something that someone you know quite well, then Senator John Kerry, said to reporters in the Capitol when he was trying to move a big climate bill in early 2010. He said, quote, he said, quote, "What we are talking about is a jobs bill. It is not a climate bill. It is a jobs bill. It is a clean air bill." So I mention that by way of saying, I've been watching this movement for a long time, and I've been seeing the climate movement and the clean energy movement emphasize jobs and other kitchen table topics, economic messages, and public health for 20 plus years now. Hasn't the approach you just laid out been tried already?
So I remember 2010 very differently because I was not in Washington, D.C. trying to pass a cap and trade. I was in California trying to defend our energy system. And together with a famous Republican, George Shultz, we basically ran a program to protect the most advanced energy policy in the United States against two out-of-state oil companies. No one else wanted to do it because they knew we'd lose. They knew the oil companies had way more money than us, and they knew they were very tough-nosed and would inevitably win. George and I had a rule. Can't mention climate. This is about the kitchen table. It's about health, clean air. It's about new industries and new jobs. We got the Chamber of Commerce. We got the unions. We got the Republican governor. We got the Republican running for governor. And our best ad was a 55-year-old woman who is the head of the California sector of the American Lung Association, talking on camera on a sunny day in a California garden about how important it was for breathing and for kids' health to get rid of asthma. And we got 70% of the vote. So my point is, if you can really get down to brass tacks, if you really are on the ground with people, and you can explain to them why this is a win for them and their families, that's what we're trying to do. And honestly, let me say this too. When I travel around the United States, I love talking to young people because I like to learn what they know, which is a lot of stuff I don't know, and how they feel. And what I see from young people is they are so accustomed to failure. They are so inured to government lack of success that if I say anything negative, they completely turn off. Like, I know this, I'm already depressed, why are you bumming me out? If I talk about solutions, the things I know will work, the way for us to change the future, to actually give them a bright future and us a bright future, they turn on like an electric bulb.
Thank you. Speaking of solutions, I want to turn to the nexus between solutions and finance. You're both an investor and an advocate. How has Trump 2.0 changed your investment thesis around clean tech?
So let me say this. I do co-chair a multi-strategy firm investing in projects and companies that solve the climate crisis and push forward the energy transition. This is by far our best year. What we are seeing very much is that on the ground, the energy transition is in full swing. Economically, there's no question what's going on in the United States. There's no question about what's going on around the world. In the attention economy, we're not doing so well. I mean, today at the UN, I'm pretty sure that the president will get more attention than Ben and I will. I'm not 100% sure. But in the real world and from an investing standpoint, what we are seeing is this is an inevitable transition. And if you can understand it and understand what the pain points are, the things that are going to stop it, the things that are going to slow it down, and you can solve those pain points, then that's a very good investment strategy, and you have the wind at your back to do better than normal. And honestly, profit scale. We want to change the world. We need to do scale, and the things that scale are profits and government. So our attitude is make sure you understand the business, solve the pain point, get great returns.
Okay, maybe I'm misinterpreting something here, but it sounds to me like you are saying that the impact of Trump on the energy transition is not especially large. And the reason I find that an interesting idea is because I have to tell you, I am inundated with emails, phone calls, text messages, carrier pigeons, you name it, from a zillion different organizations all the time telling me that Trump is an existential threat to the US ability, and by extension, global efforts to fight climate change. Is that an inaccurate concern?
So let's do the easy part first, and then we'll do the hard part. Is he an existential threat to the world's ability to make this transition and to solve climate change? No. We're 11% of emissions. Our emissions may go down slower, but if you look at the world and you ask, look, we've never gone down, really, except for the year of COVID. We have never reduced emissions, and we're supposed to reduce emissions 40% this decade. In the first half of 2025, Chinese emissions went down 1%. China is a third of global emissions. Their fossil fuel use has peaked. Between 2018 and 2024, 95% of new fossil fuel demand came from China. If China's peaked, the world's peaked. So when we look at this transition, either on an economic basis about, are we buying renewables? Yes. Are EVs dominating? Yes. In all of the technology, the questions, the lines have basically crossed. Are there still pain points that need to be solved? Yes. Are there new technologies that can be amazing? Yes. But in terms of both the economy and emissions, we're not in a perfect place because we're in a lot of trouble about climate. But in terms of the world going the right way, that's happening. In terms of the United States of America, if we get a level playing field, we win here too. If you look at the place in the attention economy that is most anti-renewables, most anti this transition, it's Texas. Texas considers itself the center of oil and gas in the United States and the world. And if you look, the legislators and electeds there are constantly bashing renewables, but they have a very level playing field at ERCOT. And what the people are doing there is buying solar and wind, increasing solar and wind really rapidly because it's cheaper. I mean, I did write a book. Cheaper, yes. Faster, yes. Much faster to market. It's not just what you're getting, it's when you're getting it. Cheaper, faster, better, yes. And on a level playing field in the United States right now, that's what's winning.
You've used the term pain points a couple times in this discussion already in terms of the momentum of energy transition or things that are impeding it. What are the biggest pain points that you see right now as you look to sort of hasten the deployment of climate solutions?
So I think that when we talk about the deployment, there's kind of, do you have a new technology? And there's deployment of existing technology. So let's talk about deployment for a second. I think if you look at renewables in this country, the big pain points are permitting and access to the grid. And I'm sure you hear that all the time too, Ben. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. In California, I was told by the head of one of the 3 big IOUs yesterday, 12 years to build a new distribution line. To get it approved, not to build it, but to get the approval and build it. 10 years for approvals, 2 years to build. Okay. That is a huge pain point. Let me say, the grid in California is 32% efficient. 32% efficient. The grid in the United States is 42% efficient. We have the ability now, using real-time information and AI protocols, to completely change that number. So if you can go from 32 to 64, we've rebuilt the grid.
I'm glad you mentioned,
No, I'm just saying, when you talk about a pain point, people want the 20th century solution, and I could talk about why that's true. But in terms of time, speed to market, in terms of cost, in terms of the ability for us to run a completely different kind of economy, that's a technological solution that was not available 2 years ago, but is available now. And in every one of these, there's the old-fashioned solution, and there's the new solution, which often has to do with using the existing footprint harder, smarter, and better, including smarter, which is in 21st century, information century. How about that as a solution to physical problems?
On that permitting point you mentioned, this is a super hot topic, so I want to stick on that for a moment. I'm going to oversimplify a second and say, here's the basic deal that's on offer on Capitol Hill if there's going to be any realistic path forward for permitting reform. It's basically, or permitting overhaul, depending whatever you want to call it. It's something that would make it much easier to build fossil fuel infrastructure and easier to build clean energy infrastructure. Should Democrats take that deal?
If we have a level playing field, we will win. The time when there's a lot of talk in the attention economy about what is better. You know, should we be dominating energy through oil and gas? Or should we be dominating energy by competing in the new energy transition, basically in the electro-tech revolution? That is a very simple answer if you're really looking at it from a practical dollar and cents delivery basis. So if in fact we have a level playing field where people get to build what is cheaper, faster, and better, let's permit stuff. Because the old days when we're trying to prevent oil and gas from being built, I think that we're now in the business of building the clean stuff. So in fact, if we have a level playing field, I say, we want open competition in the United States. That gives you the right to lose all your money.
So sounds like
I want to give people the right to lose all their money.
Sounds like you're saying take the deal. I want to do a bit of a lightning round, a bit of a tour around the country and the world, and I would love for you to tell me, as I mention these things, can you quickly tell me, is the importance of the things that I mention overrated, underrated, or properly rated? COP summits.
Overrated.
Over.
This is
Everyone,
about.
do people agree?
This is about the economic world at this point.
Are you going to go?
I'm going to answer this question. What we are at, what all of you are at, what Ben and I are at right now is the shoe convention. You want to be in the shoe business, you go to Vegas and you go to the shoe convention. We're at the shoe convention. The question about COP for me is it the shoe convention? It will not be in Belém. If there's a shoe convention in Brazil, it will either be in Sao Paulo or Rio. And I'm in the shoe business. If there's going to be a convention in one of those cities, I'm going to go. But the question is not, am I going to go to Belém? Because the answer is no.
If this is a shoe convention, I think we both need a bit of an upgrade.
Hey. Can I point out, I have plaid sneaks.
All right, next one. Is the importance of this overrated, underrated, or properly rated? Investment tax credits for wind and solar that are slated to phase out fairly soon.
I think the importance is that is overrated.
Overrated, okay. Direct air capture and other carbon removal technologies.
Okay, that is a question to which the answer is, I want to change the question. Direct air capture, from what we can tell, talking to what we think are the best engineers in the world, it's way too expensive, it will always be way too expensive, and it does not scale under any circumstance. Way overrated. Other means of sequestration, including specifically natural means, underrated. I think there are multiple gigaton means of measurable, secure sequestration in the natural world this decade. No one thinks that. I believe that to be true, and I believe it to be important.
Something that you will invest in.
Yeah.
Major banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, bailing on these net zero coalitions. Is the importance of that overrated because there's a big freak out about it, underrated, or properly rated?
Overrated. Let me ask you guys, let me make a point. If you're waiting for business to lead the way in some intellectual fashion, keep waiting. If you're waiting for the biggest banks in the United States to make good investments in their opinion, fine. But the former, no.
Let me push back on that for a second. So these organizations, some of them convened by the UN, some of them not. It seems to me that in addition to the specific bank practices that they may or may not help enable, there's a kind of peer pressure infrastructure and that sort of describes the COP summits, it describes a lot of other events. And do you think that peer pressure sort of has some bank shot effect on the behavior of any of these institutions?
Well, let me say this. Is money to the companies and projects that solve climate and push the energy transition incredibly important? Incredibly important. That's why Katie and I started Galvanize. It's incredibly important. What we're talking about is Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and whether they're going to change their behavior as a result of making a pledge someplace to, for an indeterminate amount. I don't think it's going to change their behavior. I think that while that pledge was true, they were the biggest oil and gas lenders in the world by far. So, if they thought that was a good idea, they're not changing. They were also lending a lot to renewables. They were also lending a lot to the transition. And if they think it's profitable, they will continue to do that. I think the question that you're asking me is, how much do the words matter? The behavior definitely matters. The words, no.
Okay, thank you. Another question, is the importance of this overrated, underrated, or properly weighted? AI energy demand as a threat to cutting emissions.
As a threat, way overrated. Let's talk about AI for a second. There is a lot of talk about how we're going to get 24/7, 365 baseload power for the increase in power demand in the United States and around the world that AI and data centers present. We're not talking about how much AI is going to enable us to reduce emissions worldwide at the same time, which I think will be dramatic. So when you ask me, we could spend a lot of time about where we're going about baseload power and where we're going about secure power for AI and data centers. But in my mind, the ability to reduce emissions by using AI is dramatically more.
Thank you. And last one. EPA abandoning carbon emissions rules and even pulling back the legal foundation to be able to have a subsequent administration regulate carbon emissions. Killing the endangerment finding, in other words.
Let me say this. I think that is probably underrated, and I'll tell you why.
Huh.
We're winning in the marketplace. I think last year, new electricity generation globally was 93% renewable. We're winning in the marketplace because having manufactured energy, where every year the price goes down as we manufacture it better, as opposed to the kind of energy that you dig out of the ground and it gets rarer and more difficult to find every year. Solar, wind, batteries are down 80% last decade, and they'll be down another 80%. So the question about whether we win in the marketplace without any cost for carbon pollution, I believe is over. But the idea that polluting is something that you're not allowed to take into consideration, that really matters.
Yeah.
Because ultimately there is damage being done. And what they're saying is it's illegal to measure that damage. It is illegal to use that damage. That is something that never happened and can never, it's kind of Voldemort, what can never be named. And so that's terrible, because the truth of the matter is a true level playing field includes all the costs of production of energy. And what they're saying is, no. Let's stick that behind the curtain, and that society will pay that cost. The people down in LA who lose their houses will pay that cost. The little girls going to, Girl Scout camp in Texas will pay that cost, but we're not going to pay that cost. I don't think that's fair. I think it's important, and I think it's underrated.
Thank you. That is one we will watch in the courts and in the political realm. Tom, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining Axios.
Thank you, guys, Ben.
And thank you again for joining us here. Thank you. Please make sure to come back later today and tomorrow morning. We're hosting more conversations. We'll have the Patagonia CEO. We'll have the TerraPower CEO. A lot more great stuff. So thank you again, and have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Tom.